We've all been there, right? Kind of tangled up in complex systems, maybe at work, maybe just life stuff, trying to figure out, where do I push to make things actually move faster? You get that feeling of information overload. You're looking for that shortcut, that one key thing to know, but it just feels, well, out of reach. So today we're going to try and cut through some of that overwhelm. We're digging into a really powerful framework. It doesn't just tell you what to do, but really how to find that lever that changes everything. We're talking about Eli Goldratt's theory of constraints and throughput accounting. These ideas, they first really popped up in his book, The Goal, which is quite a read, and they offer this unique way to look at efficiency.
That's exactly right. And our mission for this deep dive really is to break down those core concepts. Specifically, we want to get into what Goldratt called the 5 focusing steps. We'll show how these steps aren't just, theory for a factory. They're actually incredibly practical tools you can use to find and tackle bottlenecks in, well, pretty much any system you come across. It's not about small fixes. It's about finding exactly where to focus your energy for the biggest impact system-wide.
Okay, so Goldratt's work isn't just abstract thinking then. It's a specific kind of hands-on method. Could you walk us through those core steps he laid out? How do you actually tackle these constraints?
Absolutely. Goldratt applied the theory of constraints using these 5 focusing steps. They're basically your roadmap for optimizing a system.
Right. We kind of intuitively get what a bottleneck is, that slow point holding things up. But Goldratt's thing was showing exactly how to not just find it, but use it, right? Strategically. So what's step 1?
Step 1 is identify the system's bottlenecks. Simple, but crucial. You find the single slowest part, the constraint that sets the pace for the entire system's output. Let's imagine a product moving through, say, 3 stages: cutting, heating, assembly.
Okay.
Now, if the market wants, let's say, 50,000 units, but your heating process, even though you have 120,000 hours available, it can only manage 40,000 units because each one takes 3 hours.
Okay.
Then heating is your bottleneck. That's the hard limit. Your whole operation can only produce 40,000 units, period. Doesn't matter how fast cutting or assembly are.
Yeah, I can really see how that just chokes everything off. So once you've found it, what's the next move? That's step 2, right? Decide how to exploit the system's bottlenecks. And exploit here doesn't sound negative, it means just get the absolute most out of it.
Exactly. It's about maximizing the bottleneck's usage, making sure it's always active, always producing as much as it possibly can. Productivity, utilization, those are your goals for the bottleneck. The Goal has some great examples of this. Alex, the main character, he notices this key machine, the NCX-10, sometimes just sitting there, idle.
Right.
So what does he do? He changes the scheduling so setups happen before breaks, just to keep that machine running, squeezing God every minute. Or there was the issue with the furnaces. They'd be left empty while parts were heating because the workers got called away.
Called away? To where?
To non-bottleneck machines. So they changed it. Workers had to stay at the furnaces, even if it meant waiting a bit, just to keep them fed and running constantly. The principle is simple. Keep that bottleneck working.
Okay, so you're getting every possible bit of production out of the bottleneck. That leads to step 3. Subordinate everything else to the decisions made in step 2. This means the bottleneck's output rate has to set the schedule for the whole system. And this, for me, this is where it starts to feel really different, maybe a bit weird.
It absolutely is counterintuitive for many people. The big insight here is that having non-bottleneck resources sitting idle sometimes isn't a failure.
Really? Idle time is good.
Well, not good in itself, but it's a necessary consequence of optimizing the system. According to Goldratt, it's actually a sign you're doing it right. In the book, they saw new bottlenecks pop up simply because the non-bottleneck machines were working too fast, producing more than the real constraint could handle.
Okay, so they were just piling up work before the bottleneck.
Exactly. Pushing too much work in just creates huge piles of work in progress, makes lead times longer, and clogs the whole system, making it look like there are new bottlenecks everywhere.
So yeah, you have to accept, even plan for, idle time on the non-bottleneck resources. It's unavoidable if you want the theory to work. That is such a big mental shift. It kind of reminds me of trying to answer emails while my coffee's still brewing, thinking I'm efficient, but really just clogging up my own brain, right? Same idea. Okay, so identify, exploit, subordinate. What if, after all that, the bottleneck still isn't producing enough? That's step 4. Elevate the system's bottlenecks. This means increasing its capacity. And Alex, in the book, he initially thought this just meant buying expensive new machines, which wasn't really an option for him.
Right. And this is where things got clever. His team found a way to elevate without massive cost. They realized some old, slower machines from sister plants could actually still make the parts.
Oh, interesting. Not as fast, but still useful.
It's exactly. Not as efficient as the main bottleneck machine, the NCX-10, but using them alongside it. Well, that boosted the overall output without needing big capital investment. Now, it's important to say that kind of free elevation is pretty unusual. Normally, step 4 does mean spending money. But the crucial point is you only consider elevation after you've fully exploited the bottleneck in step 2. You'd be surprised how much capacity you can often find just by focusing on utilization first.
Right. Maximize what you have before buying more. Makes sense. So you've gone through the steps, elevated the constraint, things are running better, but systems change, don't they? What's the last step?
Step 5. If a new constraint is broken in step 4, go back to step 1, but do not let inertia become the system's new bottleneck. This really hammers home the point. You can never get complacent. Once you fix one bottleneck, another one will eventually show up somewhere else.
So it's a continuous cycle.
It has to be. The theory of constraints demands ongoing improvement because, well, things never stand still for long, do they? And eventually, if you keep elevating your internal production bottlenecks, you'll likely hit the ultimate constraint, market demand itself. There's only so much the market will buy.
That's a really powerful framework. But, someone listening might be thinking, okay, exploit the bottleneck, I get it. But how do I actually do that, especially if I have multiple products fighting for that bottleneck's time?
Good question. And that brings us neatly into throughput accounting and something called limiting factor analysis, or sometimes key factor analysis. Crucially, in throughput accounting, the term throughput is defined very specifically. It's selling price less direct material cost. That's it.
Okay, so just materials. What about labor, other variable costs?
Nope. That's the key difference from the traditional contribution margin. Throughput accounting operates on the fundamental belief that pretty much all costs, except direct materials, are largely fixed in the short to medium term.
Why fixed? You pay workers hourly sometimes, don't you?
You might, but think about it. Can you really hire and fire skilled workers daily based on tiny fluctuations? Generally, no. Your workforce is usually there, employed, available, even if they're waiting for work from the bottleneck. You're paying them anyway. So from a decision-making perspective or on the bottleneck, those costs are considered fixed or operational expense.
Okay, that's a different way of looking at costs. So how does this help you decide which products to make when the bottleneck is limited? Let's take an example. Betaco.
Right. Betaco makes 3 products, E, F, and G. And they have, say, 320,000 hours of bottleneck time available each month.
So first you'd calculate the throughput for each one, selling price minus material cost.
Correct. Calculate the throughput per unit for E, F, and G.
Okay.
But then immediately you look at how much bottleneck time each unit consumes. So you calculate the throughput return per hour of bottleneck time.
Per hour, not just per unit.
That's the critical step, throughput per bottleneck hour. Then you rank the products based on that metric. Highest return per hour gets top priority.
And then you create a production plan based on that ranking, filling up the bottleneck hours, but also respecting the maximum demand for each product, right? You can't make more than you can sell.
Precisely. You allocate the bottleneck resource based on that rank order until you either run out of hours or hit the demand limit for each product.
So what was the insight from Betaco? Did the ranking change things?
It did. Product E looked most profitable if you just glanced at throughput per unit. But when you factored in how much bottleneck time it hogged, product G actually gave a much better return per bottleneck hour.
So G should be prioritized over E, even if E sells for more or has a higher per unit throughput.
According to the theory of constraints in throughput accounting, yes. You prioritize G to maximize the overall system's profitability, given the bottleneck constraint. That optimum plan then dictates the schedule for everything. It's about the system's total throughput, not just individual product numbers.
That's a fantastic way to focus on what truly generates value through the constraint. Okay, let's shift focus slightly. We talked about elevating bottlenecks, step 4, and the fact that new ones pop up, step 5. Let's look at that continuous improvement cycle.
Okay, let's use another example, Catco. They make just one product, using 3 machines in sequence, X, Y, and Z. Demand is 1,000 units a week. And importantly, each extra unit they manage to sell adds $50,000 to the net present value, the NPV. So making more is very valuable here.
All right. So looking at their current setup, what's the initial bottleneck? Where's the slowest machine?
That would be machine Z. Its capacity is only 500 units per week, way below the 1,000 units demand.
Okay. Clear bottleneck. Now, Catco is considering some upgrades, right? 3 potential purchases?
Yes. Let's see how the bottleneck shifts. Option 1, just upgrade Z. Let's say purchase 3 costs $7.5 million and boosts Z's capacity to 1,050 units.
Great. Bottleneck solved.
Not quite. If they only upgrade Z, Machine X with its capacity of 800 units immediately becomes the new bottleneck.
Ah, okay. So upgrading just Z only gets them from 500 to 800 units of output.
Correct. Now, what if they upgrade both Z to 1,050 and replace X, boosting its capacity to 1,100?
Then what happens?
Then Machine Y becomes the bottleneck at 900 units per week, still short of the 1,000 demand.
Okay, getting closer. So the final option is to tackle all three.
Right. Address Z to 1,050, X to 1,100, and increase Y's capacity somehow, let's say by 550 units, taking it up to 1,500.
Oh, if I do all that.
Then the constraint is no longer the machines. It becomes market demand itself at 1,000 units per week. The factory could make more, but there's no point.
So how do they decide if these upgrades are worth the money? You compare the cost to that NPV gain from the extra units.
Exactly. You calculate the total NPV increase from selling more units, up to 1,000, and see if it outweighs the total cost of the necessary purchases. The big takeaway from CATCo, though, is this. If they can afford it, they should invest in all the necessary upgrades to reach market demand, addressing Z, X, and Y in this case. That maximizes their potential. However, and this is critical, elevating a bottleneck isn't always financially smart if you do it piecemeal. Look at CATCo again. If they could only afford the first upgrade, just Machine Z, it might actually be better to make no investment at all.
Really? Why is that?
Because upgrading only Z costs $7.5 million, but it only lifts output from 500 to 800 units before Machine X stops them. That increase from 500 to 800 units might not generate enough extra NPV at $50K per unit to justify the $7.5 million cost.
Wow. So you have to look ahead to the next bottleneck before investing in the current one.
Precisely. It highlights that you need to think about the entire system and the sequence of constraints. Sometimes a partial investment just doesn't pay off. You need to see the whole path to alleviating the real limitation, which might be further down the line, or even market demand.
That's a really stark example of system thinking. Fascinating. Before we wrap up, I heard there are also some throughput ratios that give a deeper insight.
Yes, just briefly, there are 3 main ones people use. First is return per factory hour. That's simply the throughput per unit divided by the time that product spends on the bottleneck resource.
Okay, we kind of used that idea in the Beta Co example, right?
We did, implicitly. Okay. The second is cost per factory hour. This is your total factory cost, what Goldratt calls operational expense, divided by the total time available on the bottleneck resource. It's a factory-wide measure.
Got it. And the third?
The third combines them. The throughput accounting ratio, or TPAR. You calculate this by dividing the return per factory hour by the cost per factory hour.
TPAR, what does that ratio tell you?
It's a really powerful indicator. If your TPAR is greater than 1, it means for your bottleneck resource, the rate at which you're generating cash from sales, throughput, is faster than the rate at which you're incurring costs. That's good.
And if it's less than 1?
Less than 1 is a warning sign. It suggests that for the time spent on the bottleneck, you're spending money faster than you're generating throughput. It signals that changes are needed, and probably quite quickly, to avoid losing money on those bottleneck operations.
That's a neat summary metric. Well, what an incredible journey today. We've gone from finding those hidden constraints to the really powerful steps of exploiting them, subordinating everything else, elevating when needed, and realizing it's this constant cycle, isn't it? This deep dive really gives you, I think, a solid framework for thinking about efficiency, about optimization, in pretty much any system you encounter, factory, project, maybe even just managing your own time.
Absolutely. And we really hope you, the listener, take these ideas and maybe think about how they could apply in your own world, your own work, maybe even personal projects. The versatility of these principles is really quite remarkable.
Definitely. So here's something to maybe chew on until next time. Thinking about that CATCo example. What's a system you're involved in where the ultimate constraint isn't a physical machine? Maybe it's something less tangible, like communication flow or approval processes or even skill availability. How would you start applying these 5 focusing steps to that kind of bottleneck?